So now in today's topic, in today's session, we are going to discuss about the CISSP practice questions. So before we start with the CISSP practice question sets, there are some guidelines. These are just my recommendations. So one of the recommendation is normally we have a tendency that whenever we get a question, okay, whenever we give any exam, we first read the question and then read the answers. But however, in CISSP, try to read the answers first, then identify the questions, identify the keywords, and then try to find the right answer. So always in the CISSP, not only in the CISSP, if you start this approach gradually, it will help you in all other certifications as well. So first try to read the answers. So when you read the answer, you get a context, what the question is talking about. Then you read the question, then you identify the keywords and you answer the question. That's how you should your question you should try to attempt the questions. Okay, the another thing from the CISSP exam point of view is that CISSP is not a technical exam. So the exam is not going to question you how to implement your SIM QRadar rule. So how the exam is not going to test you how to implement a firewall or how to add a offense rule in a QRadar. The exam is totally management specific exam. It's totally focused on security and risk management. So now the number of questions which you get in the CISSP exam is around 175. Maximum amount of questions you will get is 175. Okay, and the number of duration which you will get is 4 hours. The number of duration which you will get in the exam is 4 hours. So within 4 hours you have to attempt 175 questions. So you have to go with a you have to go with an idea, you have to go with a mindset that you are going to get minimum 175 questions. Okay, so that's what the question is, the exam is going to be. So CISSP is not going to test your technical skills. Obviously, there are some domains which are in which little bit technical context is necessary. But CISSP is not a technical driven certification, so it's not like your Azure or AWS certification where it's going to only uh, test your practical implementation skills. It's going to test your risk management skills. So that is what your exam is based on. So when you are answering the questions, you should think your role is like a risk advisor. So you should not think like a technical, a technical person. When you are going to give this exam, your role is like a risk advisor. So your role is not to fix the problem, it is to fix the process. That is the one thing which you have to understand. Your role is, I am repeating again, your role is not to fix the problem, your role is to fix the process. That is why we have mentioned that the management, when we talk about a management is always driven with why, what, and who, instead of how and where. Instead of how and where. The technical people are more driven based on how and where. But when we talk about management, okay, the management is always concerned about why, what, and who. Okay, so why it is necessary, what has happened, and who did. So that is why we say that when you are going for the CISSP exam, it's basically your role is like a risk advisor. So your role is to fix the process, not to fix the problem. To understand the context about the why, you need to first understand what and who, then only you will be able to answer the why part of the question. So in case if you get a technical question, first you should focus on how, lastly you should focus on where. So to take a live example, let's say if I am talking about, if I give you a task to implement an inbound rule in the firewall, if I give you a task to enable an inbound rule in a Windows firewall, a technical person will just go ahead and enable the rule. But when you talk about, when you go with the same requirement to a management guy, the management guy will carry out a risk assessment. They will understand what is the rule is, what the rule is going to do, what they are going to assess the impact of the rule. and after carrying out a thorough risk assessment, understanding the impact, then only the rule is going to be implemented. So that is what the difference between a technical guy and a management guy. So as I repeat again, CISSP is not going to test your technical skills. It's a management driven certification. So your role is as a risk advisor. So you should not focus on your focus should be while answering the question is to fix the process. So now we are going to start with the first question. So you are an IT manager. Your company building has experienced a fire. Which of the following should you do first? So here the keyword is your company building has experienced a fire. Which of the following you should do first? Ensure that the backups were run the night before. Ensure that the customers are notified. Ensure that the fire suppression systems in the server room activated successfully. Ensure that all employees are safe. Answer is D. Ensure that all employees are safe. The live example of this question is in the organizations we have something like your fire drill. In the fire drill, so every organization, they have some fire mock drills. So where when their mock drills are simulation mock drills are initiated, that time you have to be aware of the exit process, the emergency exit and all. So that is the reason why the answer is D. So you have to make sure that the employees are safe. Okay, so your first preference is to always protect the human, protect the human, protect the life. So that is the reason why the answer is D. Ensure that the employees are safe. Next, which of the following confidentiality, integrity, availability attribute supports the principle of least privilege by providing access to information only to authorized and intended users? Confidentiality, integrity, availability, and accuracy. See, one thing from this question, definitely we can remove option D, because there is nothing called as accuracy. If we talk about the CIA trade, there is nothing called as accuracy. So definitely we can remove the option D. Okay, so now the remaining option which is left is A, B, and C. So one thing which you have to understand, in the exam, any question talking about least privilege, need to know, encryption, all that, if need to know, least privilege, encryption, if these keywords are there in the exam, answer is confidentiality. That is the reason why answer is A, because the question is talking about the least privilege by providing access to information only to authorized and intended users. So privileges which is required for the user to do their job. Okay, so any question in the exam talking about least privilege, need to know, encryption, these kind of keywords are there in the exam, answer is your confidentiality. That is the reason why we were left with option A. Next, controlling access to information systems and associated networks is necessary for the preservation of their authenticity, confidentiality, and availability. Confidentiality, integrity and availability, option C, and option D, authenticity, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. See, now in this question, it is talking about controlling access to information system and associated network is necessary for the preservation. Okay, so basically the question is talking about controlling access to the information system. So as I said in the previous question, any question talking about least privilege, need to know, or encryption, answer is confidentiality. And second, it is also is necessary for their preservation. Okay, so when we talk about, see, when we talk about, if we go with option C, integrity and availability does not have confidentiality, so definitely option C is removed. Okay, option C is removed. Now why can't we go with option D? Because when we talk about the authenticity, this is already covered in this. This is already covered in this. Okay, integrity and availability is fine, but authenticity is already covered in this confidentiality, because based on the need to know, based on the least privilege model only, we are providing the access. So definitely we have removed C and D. Now the option is left with A and B. Now again, we could have gone with now again, why can't we go with option A? Because it talks about authenticity, confidentiality and availability, but does not have the integrity. That is the reason why answer is B, confidentiality, integrity and availability. The question is talking about the CIA triad, which stands for confidentiality, integrity and availability. That is the reason why the answer is B, confidentiality, integrity and availability. Next, in an environment where asset classification has been implemented to address the requirement of privacy protection. In an environment where asset classification has been implemented to address the requirement of a privacy protection, who in the following list is considered to be the owner and therefore has the accountability to ensure that the requirements for protection and compliance are addressed properly? See, there is one thing which definitely in this question, so this question is morely, it is based on the compliance. So we can say that this question is more based on your GDPR principle, first thing. Okay, so now when we definitely, which answer we can eliminate in the first place is data subject. This is something which we can eliminate. Why we can eliminate this subject, data subject? The reason why we can enable is that, first thing, because the data subject means here the option is talking about the subject on which the data can be identified, the subject on which the data can be identified. So in case we can say that, in the live example of this option B, why I removed option B is, like your live example, your Aadhaar card and PAN card which is there, that's a live example of your data which by which I can identify an individual. Okay, I can identify an individual. So by your Aadhaar card and by your PAN card or passport, I can easily identify you. So that is the reason why I removed the data subject. Okay, now the next option is your data steward. So data steward is something who basically, the role of a data steward is to make sure to maintain the health and fitness of the data, to make sure to maintain the health and fitness of the data. So any question in the real exam talking about health and fitness of the data, health and fitness of the data, answer is D, data steward. But here the question is not talking about the health and fitness of the data. Here the question is talking about has the accountability to ensure that the requirement for protection and compliance are addressed properly. So definitely D is also gone. Now we are left with data processor and data controller. Now why can't we? So now if we talk about data processor, so now let's take a live example. Let's say you went, let's take a live example. Let's say you went to open a bank account in HDFC. You open a bank account in HDFC. You opened a saving account or salaried account in HDFC. Now HDFC is using your account. HDFC is storing your account details in Google Cloud server. In Google Cloud, HDFC is using Google Cloud, and they are using they are storing your data which is collected from you over the Google Cloud. Tomorrow, if anything goes wrong, let's say the Google Cloud is compromised, who will be the ultimate accountable? Who will be the ultimate accountable? You, Google Cloud will be the ultimate accountable, or HDFC Bank will be ultimate accountable? Answer is HDFC Bank, because you have opened your bank, you have opened your account with HDFC. So for you, HDFC Bank is ultimate accountable to protect your data. Okay, that is the reason even option A is gone. So the right answer is option C, data controller. Data controller. So like I gave you a live example, in case when you open an account with HDFC Bank, even though HDFC is storing their details in Google Cloud, tomorrow if the Google Cloud is compromised, still HDFC will be held accountable. Definitely HDFC can claim damage from Google, that's a different story, but ultimate accountability for protecting the data always lies with the data controller. That is the reason why the option is C. Next, which of the following is true regarding data retention requirements? Legal requirement for data retention are uniform across all regular business sectors and must be followed to reduce criminal litigation. That is not true, because data retention requirements are not uniform across all the business sectors. It can vary from requirement to requirement basis. To comply with various data retention regulation, it is best to retain all data to the lengthiest legal requirement. That is also not true. Why? Because if we retain all the data, our accountability also increases and our data storage cost will also increase. So it's not advisable to retain all data for to the lengthiest legal requirement. So definitely B is also gone. Retaining the largest amount of data possible makes responding to electronic discovery orders easier and more straightforward. Okay, so we can it makes electronic discovery orders easier, but that does not mean that we have to maintain the largest amount, we have to retain the largest amount of data. That is not true. So definitely option C is gone. So what we are left with? We are left with option D. A well documented policy for the retention of data is a minimum but necessary component of regulatory compliance. So you should maintain, so like every organization according to the compliance and all, there is a minimum amount of data which needs to be maintained. Like when we talk about a financial industry, minimum 6-7 years of data needs to be maintained. So every organization, every whichever regulatory compliance your organization is following, that regulatory compliance will have a minimum amount of data retention requirements which you have to follow. So you have to maintain the minimum amount of data. You don't have to maintain the largest amount of data. That is the reason why we left with option D. Next, in which of the following security models in which of the following security models is the subject clearance compared to the object's classification such that specific rules can be applied to control how the subject to object interactions take place? See, this question is based on your domain 3. First thing, this question is based on your domain 3, which is security architecture and engineering. The question is talking about the security models. Okay, so now any question in domain 3 or any question talks about subject clearance level, subject clearance level, where it is talking about any question talking about subject clearance, which has where the compared to subject, compared to the object classification, object classification such that specific rules can be applied to control how the subject to object interactions take place. Okay, any question in the exam talking about the subject clearance, answer is Bella Padula model. Answer is Bella Padula model. Okay, so remember, from the exam point of view, any question in the exam talking about the subject clearance level, the answer is Bella Padula. Okay, next thing, which security model introduces access to objects only through programs? Only through a program. It means you have a system A, you have a system A, you have a system B. Now, in order to access system B, there is a program through which only the access can be allowed or it can be achieved. Okay, so any question in the exam talking about, any question in the exam talking about access to objects only through programs, answer is Clark Wilson model. Answer is Clark Wilson model. Answer is your Clark Wilson model. So the answer for this question is Bella Padula, option A, and the second Clark Wilson model, option C. Next, which of the following models is best considered in a shared data hosting environment so that the data of one customer is not disclosed to a competitor or other customers sharing that hosted environment? Sharing that hosted. So now here the question is talking about which of the following models is best considered in a shared data hosting environment so that the data of one customer is not disclosed to a competitor or other customer. So any question in the exam, any question in the exam talking about competitor shared data hosting to other customers, answer is Brewer Nash. We also call this as Chinese wall. We also call this as Chinese wall. So any question in the exam talking about shared data hosting environment or disclosed, not disclosed to a competitor or other customers, answer is Brewer Nash. Live example is your cloud environment, your AWS, your Google Cloud, your AWS, Azure. So where even if you are storing your data in a shared environment, the data is not visible by other customer. That's a live example of Brewer Nash. Which of the following models ensures that a subject with a clearance level of secret has the ability to write only to objects classified as secret or top secret, but is prevented from writing information classified as public? Once again, question is talking about the clearance level. Question keyword contains clearance level. Answer is Bella Padula, option D. The third question is based on common sense. Which of the following describes the rules that need to be implemented to ensure that the security requirements are met? Okay, here it is talking about describing the rules that need to be implemented to make sure the security requirements are met. Answer is B, security policy, because with the help of security policy only we can make sure that the security requirements are met. That's why. Next, which of the following are correct names for the OSI model layer 1, 6, 7, and 3? So layer 1 stands for physical layer, layer 6 stands for presentation layer, Layer 7 stands for application layer, and layer 3 stands for network layer. So the answer is D. Answer is D. Physical presentation application and network. Answer is D. Physical presentation application and network. That are the correct names for the OSI reference model. Next, which of the following is a converged protocol that allows storage mounts over TCP and which is frequently uses a lower cost alternative to fiber channel? Lower cost alternative to fiber channel. So definitely MPLS is not the answer. SDN is also not the answer. VoIP is also not the answer. Answer is iSCSI. iSCSI. Because the question is talking about mounting a storage over TCP. That is the reason why the answer is D. iSCSI. Last question. Okay. Which one of the following technologies would provide the most automation of an inventory control process in a cost effective manner? Inventory control process over a cost effective manner. Okay, here the question is talking about the inventory control process. So definitely IPS is not the answer. Ethernet is also not an answer, and Wi-Fi is also not an answer. Answer is your RFID. Live example of your RFID is your FASTag, which is there in the cars. The FASTag, which basically used in the toll booths. Another live example is when you go to DMart and all. Okay, they have this RFID scanner by which whatever items you have brought, they scan the QR, they scan the code, automatically the number of items and the price appears in their screen. So that's a live example of your RFID. That's a live example of your RFID. That is the reason why the answer is C. Now, what is the answer of the last question? Which choice below is not a common element for a user account administration? Okay. If the question is talking about not a common element, not a common element. So establishing, issuing and closing user accounts is definitely a common element, because when a user joins, when an employee joins the organization, you create the user account, you issue the user account, and once the employee leaves the organization, you disable the user account. So definitely option A is gone, because here the question is talking about the user account administration and the keyword is not. Establishing, issuing and closing your user accounts is definitely we do as a part of user account administration. That's why option A is gone. Authorizing the request for a user system account. So definitely option A is gone. We can park the option B for now. Let's investigate the other options. Tracking users and respective access authorizations. This is also something which we do. So once an access is provided, once an access is provided to a user, we periodically track what access the user has. So normally, you would have observed that if your managers, so let's say you have provided an access for a CyberArk vault for 6 months. After 6 months, before your access is expired, your manager will receive a email asking that whether access needs to be revoked or access needs to be extended. If the access needs to be extended, your manager has to raise an IT request in the system. So definitely we track the access of the users so that the users only has access what is necessary. So definitely option C is also gone. periodically verifying the legitimacy of current account and access authorization. This is also something which we do, because we verify we verify the current accounts and what access the accounts have. So let's say if a user is working in project 1, if a user is working in project 1, now the user has been moved to project 2. Now the user has been moved to project 2. So definitely the user needs to have access only for project 2. His project 1 access needs to be revoked. So that is the, so we periodically verify and make sure that the access authorization is only valid for the current role which he is having. He or she does not have any excessive privileges. So we are left with option B, authorizing the request for users system account. See, we don't authorize a user for a system account. System account is there, which is there by default. We don't authorize a user to use a system account. So here the question was talking about not a common element. Then A, C, and D is something which we do as a part of a user account administration. That is the reason why I went with option B. So when the question is coming, you have to read the keywords. You have to read the keywords. I know it is hard, but eventually with practice you will be better to read the answers, identify the keywords, and then choose a correct answer. So thank you, team. Hope you enjoyed the questions. Thank you.